This is Kayleen and welcome to my channel. I am doing graphic book reviews on this video. I started this channel to promote my graphic memoir called Mom Remembers Me, about how I used my health and fitness knowledge to stop my mother with mild dementia from forgetting me. So in the process of learning how to do that, because I didn't grow up reading graphic books, but I wish I did. I did kind of learn, reading the graphic books to learn to write mine, that graphic books seem to cut out a lot of the boring stuff and then they just get right to the meat of the thing. So I've always read a lot of autobiographies. My philosophy was always I can learn from people's mistakes, and some celebrities would go over their grandparents in the beginning of their autobiography, and then I didn't really find that kind of helpful, and then their parents. But graphic memoirs and graphic books and stories, I read a lot of graphic memoirs because I was learning for my book as well. But they do kind of cut out the boring stuff. They just don't jump right to the interesting stuff. So I started reading all the books to help with my book, and then I decided maybe I should start reviewing them on my channel too, to get more videos. And I'm just crossing my fingers that you might like and comment, and maybe you'll subscribe. I know YouTubers harass the living bejeebus out of you to subscribe, because we don't make any monetization unless we have at least 1,000 subscribers, and I only have 32 right now. So have a heart, will ya? Or at least like and comment, or at least comment, okay? I'd really appreciate it. Let me know what made you click on this book. So this is Numb to This by Kendra Neely. And you know what? I also sent her a message just today. Today is Thursday, January 26th, asking her permission. The book doesn't say that I have to ask the publisher, but I sent her a message asking for her permission. So Kendra, when you see this, thanks a bunch for responding so fast and giving me permission. So I wanted to go over this book and show you what I liked about it, and some of the art and some of my comments. And I've been teaching health and fitness, so I've been studying meditation. Obviously, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, but I've studied a lot of wellness, a lot of personal growth, and I truly believe that much of personal growth is psychology, is therapy. So I was going to share some of my thoughts with what she goes over too, but she does a really good job, and I'm glad everything really worked out. She's learning just like we're always learning. So here we go. Okay, I'm trying something new. I'm recording myself, and maybe I'll do both. See if I get better. See, it's really time consuming and learning a lot, but it's good for our brain to keep learning, right? So I'm gonna show you some of the favorite parts of this book in my comments. So this is Numb to This, a memoir of a mass shooting by Kendra Neely. So it starts off, I wanted to show some of my favorites, some of the pretty art. She does a very good job. I love colors. I don't really like the black and white books. I read them to learn, but I really prefer the colors. Colors are fun, right? We like colors. And she does a very good job with some of the colors of some of the forests. And of course, this one was my first favorite. She talked about hanging out at the river instead of ditches when she moved from Texas to Oregon. Her mother, because there was too many shootings in Texas, and she moved to Oregon. So this was the first one I wanted to show. So this, she talks about, after the mass shooting at her college, everybody was trying to find relatives and loved ones to see if they're okay. And it did remind me of a World War II movie after the Holocaust, and Holocaust survivors were looking for their loved ones. So then this was really good. So what I spend time improving my art is when I really like what a graphic artist, and she went to sequential art college, in Savannah in Georgia, so I spend time when I find I already like looking at facial expressions and copying that. So I'm going to copy this into my sketchbook, into my journal, to learn both of these expressions are good. So I'm going to keep my bookmark here so I can go back and copy that. So then the art here was really pretty too. See the colors? Comic book art, right? And she's other grading. So Kendra, I don't know what program you used. I was curious to know what program you used for this. So
if you use an Adobe Fresco or Procreate. She doesn't. Some graphic books will show you their drawings in the end. She didn't do that, but she did explain some other stuff. So, so this was a really good page. And so for my book, when you guys read my book, Mom Remembers Me, my mother was a monster on anti-psychotics. And I believe it's the pharmaceutical industry. Sometimes I believe that people give their, the medical industry, gives people the pharmaceuticals to make them mean, and you don't want to be around them, and then you put them into a home. So when I took my mother off antipsychotics, and it made a huge difference. I'm telling you the stories because I sometimes wonder, and I have read articles, that the people that go ballistic and do mass shootings were already on antipsychotics or even antidepressants. Because if you look at the side effects for most drugs, a lot of times what the drug is for is actually listed as a side effect. It really makes you wonder. So I wanted to point that out. So we'll see what happens, right? This was some other good expressions and good story. Oh, so then she also mentions that going with her friend to pet animals always helps, and that definitely helps. There's so many studies for wellness that petting animals, and that's what would have been really a shame with my mother. My mother always loved dogs and cats, and the beginning of my story about my graphic memoir is I had to fight a nursing home in probate court to get my mother out. They went to court and did everything illegally to keep my mother in there for the insurance money, and they would have taken away everything, all of her autonomy. They wanted to lock her in a lockdown unit with what I called with people that couldn't speak at all, and they were all catatonic. So she was able to have a normal conversation till the minute that she died. So she did not need to be in a lockdown unit. They would have taken away her love of animals, taken away her love of walking outdoors and dancing. My mother was a good dancer. She could lead a whole bunch of social dances, lead and follow. So I wanted to point that out. So if anybody, sometimes I have thought about going to the Humane Society and just petting the animals, right? It's always good. So I really like this picture, so I wanted to show this. She did a really good job. And this is what gave her the idea for part of the commemoration for after the mass shooting. So she did dragonflies for everybody. This was really good. I like this. And these were good pictures too. Yes. So what I encourage people in my book is drawing helps, and doesn't matter if it's good because people might not see it. Writing a book. I learned a lot just writing my book. More problems with the healthcare industry and things you didn't think about when it was happening. So for instance, the elder services shared personal information with the nursing home attorney that they used against me, and that was supposed to be confidential, and I didn't realize that until after I was writing the book. And then of course when I wanted to get my mother's elder services record, and I had a state trooper telling me that he believed that the elder services had their own agenda and it did not follow what the family wanted. So I really believe that the elder services and the nursing home were in cahoots, because the two attorneys were always like that all the time. They're always in cahoots. And why did that nursing home know that private, confidential? And then also when I wanted my mother's medical records from elder services, they wouldn't give them to me, even though I was a whole bunch of other legal stuff. But I had to go to court to be deemed her personal representative to get those documents. So that always kind of made me wonder, right? So I wanted to share that with you. Write a book, even if it's just for yourself. If you've had something like, and everybody has traumatic situations in their life, right? This was really good art. This was good to look into the artist's brain. And a lot of times when an artist explains how they did their art, you go, oh, I see it, but you didn't see it until they point it out. So she mentions here about the person had X, so she put the X in this particular person's dragonfly. So that was good to hear. See the artist's thinking, right? So this was, she did I thought this was, or maybe this was probably off the cuff, but I thought this was a very good speech that she did. That people, I wonder whether any celebrities or even politicians have ever said this. She said she loves people and it's all about them during her graduation. This, all personal growth, all wellness suggests that you should go on a news fast. When we see the news, because the news philosophy is always, if it bleeds, it leads. So watching the news, which used to be a fight with my mother all the time. She always wanted me to watch the news, and I haven't watched the news because I don't want to hear all the stuff. They don't tell you the good things. They don't tell you when things went wrong, if they messed up. I remember years ago when killer bees were coming up from South America. Of course, the killer bees never came up to America from South America, but they didn't come back later and say, "Oh, we're sorry, we made a mistake." They just put us in fear. So I really believe that watching the news, and it does not help you. So this was really good art. I really like this. The colors here, and I've been thinking about this, you can do this. You can do different colors for the water versus just the blue. The colors are good here. This is when she was traveling with her mother to go to Savannah School of Art to get their sequential. So those colors and art was excellent here. Oh yeah, this was more good art. I like the colors here. Very, very simple, but really effective and really pretty. I love the colors. So what? Oh, so here, her friend tells her to take a bath. And in all my years of teaching all of my classes, soaking in water is the most beneficial. Number one, it helps with your orthostatic intolerance, and I swear, and I bet anybody would always agree with me, you can't be in a bad mood physically or mentally after soaking in water. So if you just feel like taking a bath or a jacuzzi or soaking in water, and it also reduces your muscle soreness. So if you take a bath or any kind of soaking in water, I can't tell you how many times I've said soak in water to all my phys ed classes, only to have somebody say, "Is a shower okay?" A shower cleans you, but it doesn't massage you. So when I say soaking in water, I mean pool, jacuzzi, or bathtub, right? If you soak in that, you'll also reduce your muscle soreness, but I would recommend that you do it that night. So if you do something different, I had one of my students tell me after she'd heard me preaching that to I think she took my kickboxing class. I preached that a lot, and she ended up being in a really bad car accident and flipped her car, and she said she soaked in the water that night, especially if you ever get rear-ended, right? Then she didn't feel as worse. You're going to feel sore, but you won't be as sore after any kind of physical if you have some kind of accident, something like that. So soak in water. Also, if you're ever upset about something, soak in water. And I wanted to go over, everybody, and I say to all my classes, meditation is to train your brain to do what you want it to do. So when she had some negative fear thoughts, meditation is hard. I've taken a whole class in grad school on meditation. I work at it myself. Your brain somehow always brings in those negative thoughts and those fears. And lately, when some of those negative affirmations come in, because our brain is like a loop going around, they always say 90% of what's in our brain you've already been thinking about. So you have to stop it. And lately, sometimes when I have a negative worry, which I don't have a lot, I had my father always saying, "Don't worry, be happy." Worrying is like rocking on a rocking chair. It'll give you something to do, but won't get you anywhere. So you have to train and slow down and stop those thoughts. And you can control those thoughts, but it takes a lot of work. So people do drugs and alcohol to stop that. They can't fall asleep. So if you learn how to meditate and slow down the brain, it's always going to help. And so lately, like I was saying, sometimes when those negative thoughts come in my brain, I'll just go rolling on the floor laughing, or laugh out loud that could ever possibly happen. I sometimes hear my father go, "Don't be so thin-skinned, let it roll off your shoulders," right? Just laugh out loud at some of those negative thoughts and go, "That's never going to happen." Because I also sometimes believe, like I do believe in what Wayne Dyer says, that what you think is you're creating in your life. So I've had some, and also I've read it, like Jack Herpy's book. He talked about when he drew and stuff, a lot of those things happen in real life. So life imitates art, right? And also if you are creating your life like the Matrix in your brain, And I just had a friend die last year. She was the biggest worrier I ever met in my life, and she died of breast cancer because I can't even imagine how many negative things that she had that happened in her life. She created them in her head, and then some of them happened. So, oh, I wish if I finished my book, but I really liked how she put herself over the 2 panels. I haven't totally printed my book and put it out to publication. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. If anybody has any ideas, I'd appreciate that. Got to figure out how I'm going to publish it. But I like how she did that. That was a really good creative. I've seen that in some graphic books, but not a lot. So this was, oh, and also in the Zen of Art book, he talks about, writing a book. If it's not just for yourself, just think you're going to help out at least one person. And I think you're going to help out yourself more, but drawing and art. And I put that in my book. I truly believe that caregivers should use some form of art to help them with their caregiving. And I did that with my mother. I used to go to paint nights to challenge her. And you do know that looking at a picture and an image is more challenging for your brain than playing chess. So I wonder whether they have any books, some studies on reading graphic books versus textbooks to really challenge your brain. By the way, the neurological test they give the elderly, no scientific data. There's just psychologists reviewing it, but no psychology. The 3-word recall and drawing a cube. So for any artists out there, and in Kendra, they make people draw a cube as their neurological test with no reference and with no instruction. And Betty Edwards says in her book that nobody can draw a cube unless they've been taught. So caregivers, question your doctor, ask them for scientific studies, and ask them what happened to the control group when it comes to everything. So that's I wanted to say about that. The Zen of Art says, you'll help out somebody. If nothing else, you'll help out one other person if you write a book. I think she was listening to something from another mass shooting, and I don't think this helps. I really don't think this helps. But I know we get sucked down this rabbit hole and even during 9/11, sorry, I watched it once and then I left. I was not going to watch the same scenes over and over again. I happened to be at a hotel and for traveling for work, which I didn't really do very often, but everybody stayed in the big lobby of this hotel and watched the same scenes over and over again, and I left after just seeing it once. I don't believe watching that over again helped me whatsoever. She gives a good example here, and I remember reading in some books about when somebody dies, it's always better to say something than nothing at all. But I think that in a lot of ways, people have a huge fear of making a mistake and saying the wrong thing and making it worse because they don't have any training. So I don't think you should ever take offense. They just don't. They're scared. They don't want to hurt you. That's just my personal philosophy. And I did learn after my mother passed away, I had people, which I put this in my book because people thought that they had just seen her when she had died a year and a half earlier. Because when it comes to time, people get confused with Alzheimer's, and it's a major one of the questions for the neurological test. So I wanted to go over time and stuff. So no training. Oh yeah, and I'm sorry. I wanted to also mention that sometimes when I told people that my mother died, they got so sad that I had to start making a joke to them so they weren't sad telling me. So my joke to people that got so sad when I told them my mother died was like, I hope she's up there and not down there. She's up there and not down there, right? And it seemed to be very good to stop people from being upset. Oh, and then so Kendra mentions about what the media uses them as a sound bite, and that's true. But I would really think that she should write in here what she thinks that the media should do. I don't think that the alternative would be no exposure. We have to have some exposure, right? I really wonder what would be the best happy medium. See more good colors. Oh, the last thing I wanted to end with, I thought this was a really good picture, but She mentions in the book that she had an appointment to see a therapist. I would be really curious to know what the therapist taught her. I guess it was personal and she didn't want to share that. But for anybody, I would be curious to know what the therapist taught her to relieve her panic attacks. And that was a good art. The ending was even more colorful. I liked arts. Because, I mean, that's good because she's coming out of it. Right? And the dragonfly. Wow, that view is beautiful. Yeah, it really is. So, thanks for listening. Like I said, I'm crossing my fingers that you like, comment, and subscribe. But if you don't, I hope you learned something. And take care. Have a great night.